And our second main topic today gets submitted to us by Kevin Finn, who writes, "Hey, John and Rob. Reviews are starting to flow about Loki, and the overall consensus seems to be extremely positive. I haven't seen one negative review yet. No wonder Feige later promoted Michael Waldron, head writer and showrunner of Loki, to write Doctor Strange 2 and handpick him for the Feige Star Wars film. Have you seen it, and what do you think?" All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And yeah, listen, we were talking about that a little while ago, about Waldron. About the fact that, Kevin Feige picked him to write the script for his upcoming Star Wars movie. He wrote Doctor Strange 2. He must really like some of the things we've seen going on in Loki. Now, we cannot give a full review. I cannot personally give a full review of Loki for two reasons. One, I have only seen the first 2 episodes. 2, there is a review embargo, like an actual review embargo, that doesn't lift until tomorrow morning. So I can't give a full review of it. But they did lift the social media embargo, so we could give our quick thoughts on it yesterday. And my basic quick thoughts in this: it's fantastic. I loved it. I really did. And Rob, again, I was telling you this earlier. It is once again, just as WandaVision was something extremely different from anything we had seen in the MCU before. And then Falcon and Winter Soldier comes out, and it was also significantly different than a lot of things we had seen in the MCU before. Loki is definitely different from anything we've seen in the MCU before. It is, I've seen several people describe it this way, and I love the way they describe it. It is a time-traveling detective mystery. That's what this thing is. But what I loved about the first 2 episodes, and I talked about this in my initial tweet, was that it gives us a better look inside the mind of Loki that we've ever had before. And Loki is one of my favorite characters in the MCU. I mean, Steve Rogers' Captain America is my favorite character in the MCU. But that notwithstanding, Loki's always been one of my favorites because there's different layers to him. His motivations are complex. He's a really interesting character. I've always loved the character, and Tom Hiddleston plays him great. So I've always loved that. So I was not surprised when other initial reactions started to come out, and they were all looking really positive too. Here's just a couple of them. The Observer writes, "Loki is very much a screwball detective story that happens to feature time travel, while teeing up MCU's new focus on multiversal elements. It's almost a slanted whodunit, with a shit-eating grin. I really enjoyed it thus far." Then our friend Eric Davis over Fandango writes, and I love the way he describes it. Eric Davis describes it as, "It's a time-traveling detective show," which is what I was just mentioning a little bit earlier. "It's a time-traveling detective show that's laying groundwork for the MCU multiverse while also being about identity and confronting ugly truths about ourselves." Also, Complex writes, The connectivity of this show is evident, and fans will appreciate every detail. Marvel has found a way to expand the MCU and do so in such a clever and unique way." And again, that comes to us from Complex. And there are others that go on. Lots of exposition and sit-down convos, writes Screen Rant. "Less narrative momentum, leans heavily on MCU lore, and has an exciting world built on top of that. Very first act of a 6-hour movie. Hope it delivers on that setup." And yeah, that's what I believe as well. Huge setup to go into. Rob, basically speaking, look, I'll say this, and we'll talk a little bit more in depth about the first 2 episodes of Loki tomorrow, but the one group of people, I don't know if they will love Loki or not, like a lot of us who've already seen the first 2 episodes do, is the same group of people who maybe watched the first trailer for The Eternals and weren't all that taken with it because it didn't have lots of explosions and exhibitions of superpowers and blah, blah, blah. And there are people that's what kind of really attracts them to the comic book genre. And if that's missing, then it doesn't really work for them. And that's totally fair. And I think if somebody's just going into Loki looking for superpower explosions and big dynamic battles and blah, 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 which may or may not be coming in the later episodes, if that's all they're looking for in Loki, which is fair, they might walk away from it disappointed. I don't know that for sure. Maybe. All I know is that I was enthralled with this. I mean, it starts off with the first episode starts with where we found him in Avengers Endgame. And then it picks up right from there. And it just carries on from that moment that he picks up the Tesseract, and that's where this show starts from. And I thought it was wonderful. I had, a couple of us were sitting down and watching it, and we were smiling and grinning and laughing and chuckling and just going, whoa, like the whole way through. And very enjoyable to me. But anyway, Rob, you've been reading a lot of these reactions. Do they kind of line up with where your expectations have been? And what are you looking for in this Loki series?
Yeah, well, I have been very excited for this show, especially bringing in the TVA, the Time Variance Authority, and the Timekeepers, and whatever the hell they're going to do. It looked to me like this show is really reaching for the stars in terms of world building and really adding huge layers to the Marvel universe. That I was like, at first, I'm thinking, my God, this is wildly ambitious, because it makes me think of when Marvel first started, John. I was wondering, after seeing Iron Man, like, how are they going to bring in Thor and Captain America and make you believe that they could exist in the same universe as the original Iron Man, which is a fairly, it's really the story of one man confronting himself. And it wasn't world destroying or apocalyptic. And yet they were able to do it. I mean, watching what they did with Thor and Captain America, they just expanded the universe. So with this, to me, adding the Time Variance Authority and all that, if they did what they did in the comics, it's a huge leap of wackiness that they're adding to the Marvel universe. And I'm like, is this going to work? Well, apparently, after hearing what you said, by the way, you're quoted in the Rotten Tomatoes. There's a news roundup about Loki, and they quote you.
Oh, wow. Okay.
From yesterday. And I'm really excited. I mean, this looks like heady. I love sci-fi time travel stories, so we're going to get that, and then an examination of the character Loki himself. Tom Hiddleston is obviously great in the role, and now he's the first time front and center. And I'm deliriously excited for this show, John, and everything I've read and heard, and even what you've said, makes me even more excited for it. So I am hugely anticipating this series.
Yeah, it's like, it's not what I was expecting. It's different from anything we've seen in the MCU before, and I really enjoyed it. I think a lot of you are too. Now, from what I understand, I saw somebody asking in the live chat, does that mean they're dropping the first 2 episodes tomorrow or Wednesday? As far as I know, no, they're not. They are going to drop episode 1 this week, then they will drop episode 2 next week. The bad news for me, Rob, means I don't get to see a new episode of Loki for 3 weeks. I got to wait until episode 3 comes out to see it. You guys will see it then. But this has been the kind of standard operating procedure for a lot of these things. When Disney has a new show coming out, when Disney Plus has a new show coming out, they generally send us the first 2 episodes. So they usually send, at least they have for Falcon and Winter Soldier and for WandaVision. So they've done it again for Loki, but they still just release 1 episode per week. So you guys will see episode 1 this week, then episode 2 next week. As far as the runtime goes, I was very pleasantly surprised, Rob, to see that both the runtimes of both the first 2 episodes were over 50 minutes long.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I don't think, I mean, the credits on WandaVision and on Falcon and Winter Soldier were always exorbitantly long. I don't think the credits are nearly as long on the Loki show. I didn't look it up, but at least it felt like those credits were shorter than they were, because we would look up Falcon Winter Soldier, 45 minutes, great. But then you realize that the credits were literally 7 minutes long. And so that took out the show. I didn't feel like that was the case here. So the episodes are pretty long, which was great to see. I think it's really good. We'll talk about it a little bit more in depth tomorrow. But yeah, Loki is looking really good. Question is for you guys. What have you been hearing about the first couple of episodes of Loki? Are you looking forward to it? Maybe you weren't all that interested in this show. It's like, an MCU show about a villain who's died 7 times already. I mean, really? Maybe you're feeling that. Whatever you guys are thinking, jump on down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Okay, guys.